Welcome back to another episode of the Morales Group Show. Today we have a very special guest. The name is Jorge De Leon. He is a local broker here in Ventura County, and he has partnered up with eXp. For those of you that don't know Jorge, he was a president and a broker manager for one of the larger offices here in Southern California, and at some point managed about 1,300 agents here in California. So we are very, very excited to have him join and partner at eXp. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a little bit about his background, how we got into real estate, and then we're going to talk about like some of his experience in real estate and why he decided to partner up with eXp. So welcome to the show, Jorge. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. What an experience so far. So I'm excited about joining you here at eXp. And yeah, we can talk a lot about my background. And again, it's been a very interesting, past 30 years getting to this point.
I love it. So for the viewers that maybe don't know who you are, who is Jorge De Leon? Tell us a little bit about your background, your journey through real estate, and then why eXp as well too.
Well, thank you. I'm a local guy, born and raised here in Ventura County. When I was when my parents, were pregnant with me, they lived in a place called Cabrillo Village here in Saticoy. For the most part, I've lived in Ventura County most of my life. There was a 2 year period of my life when I was 11 years old when my mom and dad decided to sell everything and move to Mexico for a little while. Uh, I think at that time the political atmosphere was such that my dad said, if I don't go now, I'll likely never be able to experience what it is to, or my kids to experience what it is to be, from Mexico. So it's just my brother and I at the time, and so interesting for me. One of the reasons why I ended up, getting into real estate, my name, I was actually named after a local judge and attorney in Mexico, Mr. Jorge Santa Cruz, and that's where my name came from. My mom was very interested in making sure that her sons were helped other people in a professional way, forced to learn how to type. At a very young age. So I was one of the few kids in school that knew how to use a typewriter, very involved in community service. Even at a young age, I can tell you stories of the time that we were in Mexico. One time, my dad would always pick up. We had a Suburban when we were living in Mexico, and we would pick up people along the way to give them a ride just to help them out. Fast forward to me being a teenager in high school, mom and dad wanted to buy another piece of property, and I became involved in the whole process. The transaction did not go through for whatever reasons, and it was such a heartache for my parents. So I had made the decision that I would get myself involved into real estate. I wanted to be an engineer at first, wanted to go to Cal Poly, become a civil engineer, but I ended up going and selling real estate with a local broker. And because of that, I was able to help my mom and dad get back into real estate. We bought our first property together back in 1993 or 94, if I remember correctly. So extremely obsessed with the whole escrow process. So even though I was licensed for a couple of years, I got into escrow. I was an escrow officer for the better part of 12 years and became certified, got very involved in, the whole organization, such as, how do you set up a nonprofit organization? From there, I decided, when I met my wife, Lee Amber, who joined me in this quest, and I'll share more about that in a minute, it was time for us to go back into sales. I partnered up with none other than Kay Wilson Bolton, who joined eXp recently. Back then, we decided to get into real estate sales. She asked me to become a real estate agent so we can spend more time as a family. And it turned out that even though we had a lot of support system to get us there, I really wanted to get into new home sales because I thought that was going to be something that would teach me about sales at a deeper level. Uh, that worked out. I sold myself out of communities. I got really good at selling new homes to the point that I sold out of every single community. One of them was Village at the Park. I sold out Arbella, and I sold another community here in Oxnard, Seabridge. All those communities I sold as a new home construction. And then that that turned into me going to another brokerage, and I was always searching for other opportunities. And because of that relationship that I had built when I was selling new homes at Urbella, the opportunity to become a sales manager for Coldwell Banker surfaced, which led to 10 years of managing several offices from the Oxnard offices, Ventura, and then eventually I was given the opportunity to manage Santa Barbara and Montecito. And because of those relationships, I was able to meet other people across the country. And when the opportunity came about to take the lead as president of a new growing organization, I jumped on the opportunity. And for the last 2.5 years, I was presiding over this organization that was growing at a very fast pace. So that's a little bit about me. We can go into more details on it, but it's been, for me, I've seen myself as kind of like the Forrest Gump of real estate, kind of jumping around, learning other things, building relationships throughout, and all with the intent on how do we do this better and how do we serve the client at a higher level, and how do I actually help agents be the better version of themselves.
Yeah, I love it. And here's what I was going to ask you, like, and I see this. So you have a broker's license, so
Right.
you can easily like go anywhere and open up in California a actual traditional model brokerage. I have a broker's license as well too. I had to make a choice. Do I open up my own brokerage or do I partner up with a company like eXp? And if I partner up with a company like eXp, why? So I guess that's my question to you. Why having a broker's license did you decide not to basically open up like traditional mom and pop shop type of brokerage and decided to partner with eXp instead?
Yeah, fair question. I have and I'll give you an example or an exact answer to this. This is not the first time that face myself in making the decision. Do I go on my own and open up my own boutique? I even had a name for the company. I did all the research. I had a partner that we were, high school somebody that I had met in high school, and she's a broker in Arizona now. Um, I I study models at a very deep level, and I did not believe that I had the ability to be able to make a difference in the marketplace. In this particular case, after looking at profit and loss statements, looking at traditional models, looking at everything that it takes to be able to have a supportive system, which is very important for me to provide to a real estate agent. It's extremely expensive to do so at a high level because you have brick and mortar. We refer to that in the business as overhead costs. You have human resources to deal with, and then you have all the issues related with human resources that I'd love to take care of, but it was very prohibitive, in my opinion, without having angel funding at the tune of $2, $3, $4 million to be able to just get it off the ground and do it right. So that's why I chose not to go that route the second time around, even though I did consider doing it for the last year and a half. So
It's funny because when I was considering it, I considered it as well too. And I'm like, oh, look, I can open up my own brokerage. But for me, it was the fact that EXP acted like almost like a partner, like a silent partner where their promise to me is, look, we'll take care of all of the operations for you. We'll be the broker of record. We'll basically process all of the transactions. The only thing that you have to do is invite agents to the company. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I get to basically participate in the part that I want to participate, which is invite all my friends and local relationships that I know without having to deal with the actual operations. And that was like a big plus. So talk to us about like geographic wise though, because that was one of the things that I looked at as well too. I kind of looked at the traditional model or let me ask it this way. You study models.
right.
So what are you seeing with the way that real estate has been done for a really long time? And how are you seeing models evolve and change? And how does that benefit somebody like you?
So I'll share with you. I read a lot about the business. The one individual that really struck me was Inman. So Inman was very candid, and then there's another gentleman. His name is Matthew Ferrara. Those two individuals separately, they don't necessarily share the same philosophy, one of the things that they pointed out is that when it comes to real estate, there has not been innovation, right? We still do real estate the traditional way. Look, transportation changed with Uber. The way that we do housing has changed, such as those Airbnbs, of the world. And there's been such an improvement now. Like for example, the way that we pay each other has actually evolved tremendously. And the only thing that had not changed was the way that we do real estate brokerage. So you mentioned something about boundaries, and yes, it's a beautiful thing that I've been able to develop my skill sets of knowing, markets at a very deep level from the San Francisco Bay Area all along the coast, the Central Valley, and into the high desert, right? Those are all things, but the reality is that the traditional brokerage model is, if I wanted to expand into a place like Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, where all these new markets are opening up, I was bound and restricted that I would have to go out there and partner up with a different organization, maybe have a whole different commission structure, a different culture, etc. So for me, that actually became very restrictive. Even though I was able to help this organization where I was at to the point that maybe even restore the reputation of the brand, because once I get involved in an organization, I have to believe in it, and then I study it to the point that I feel comfortable that I can actually sell it. That's when I make the decision. Going back to your original question, it's the what was very appealing about this model, the EXP model, is that one, it was evident to me that the people that had actually joined and leveraged all the resources that EXP has to offer, the structure, the ability to be coast to coast, those were things that were very appealing to me. And I silently been watching people like you and people like some other folks. As a matter of fact, 2.5 years ago, I almost joined a team up in the Sacramento area, and I don't think it was the right time because I still needed to understand the structure a little bit better. Was I ready to make the jump? Not necessarily. The opportunity arose where over the past 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I had to go jump in deeply, even traveled to Florida to interview the right players to ensure that this was, in fact, the place for me to be. So I just wanted to thank you for opening up that opportunity because, frankly, I was looking outside of the boundaries of Ventura County to see if there was a model that I can actually thrive under, and it was actually right in my own backyard.
That's so funny, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm imagining one of the things that was happening to you, and I'm imagining that this is happening to other brokers as well too. Because let's say I run a 10,000 agent brokerage right now. What's happening is that with these new models that are a little bit more efficient, you're noticing that some of the producers or some of the different agents are joining companies like EXP. And what people start to imagine is that there's something wrong with them. They're like, oh my God, like, am I not being a good leader? Am I not like providing enough value to the agent? And the reality is that it's not that a lot of times. It's just that there's a different value proposition that is very attractive to agents, basically. So let me ask you this: like, when agents started leaving like other brokerages where you were to going to models like this, there was even a time where we ran into each other where you made me a huge offer and I said no, I'm going to go in this direction instead. So talk to us about that as well
So
too.
so interesting. There's been a lot of self-analysis. You mentioned something about, the system being broken. And I spent hours and hours, doing self-analysis. I spend a lot of time analyzing what I'm doing to to ensure that I'm in the right path, right? So in this self-analysis, when somebody made the decision that I was not worthy of continuing on with them, I, for a moment, was thinking that I was broken. But going back to the system is like people leave, people come and go. The unfortunate thing is that the system is broken, and I'm a fixer. I have a tendency of fixing things that maybe not, no me incumben, right? May not necessarily be a part of none of my business, but the reality is that my drive is to help other people to do better, right?
Mhm.
The system that I was under, I've been trying to fix it for a long time, even spending money out of my own pocket to be able to be more appealing for those agents that want to do better. And the reality is that, I felt like that, and I've shared this analogy with Daniel out of New Jersey. I felt like I was this conductor of a train, or not even the conductor, but the engineer of a train. And while I was making sure that the speed of the train was going at the same path, making sure that the tracks were that we were going in the right direction, I felt like I was not only fixing the engine of the train, but also, fixing the wheel, and at the same time tending to the nuances of my passengers to make sure that they were comfortable. And I was just doing so many things and spending so much of my energy, and people kept leaving. And it was like, what is it that I'm not doing correctly to continue to attract? Because, being congratulated by my peers outside of my own company for my involvement in the real estate community, okay, well, that might be a check mark of me doing something well. Uh, Continuing my formal education, and I only had a college, excuse me, I only had a high school degree up until recently, and I really wanted to continue my education and at least get my AA degree. And then I got my associates in science and business, being certified as a graduate of the Realtor Institute, at one point being a certified escrow officer. If it was something that needed to be attained, I went out and got it. So I wanted to be the best broker and the best manager and the best leader that an agent can have. And I could not keep them with me. And it's very painful. It's actually very painful. People say, why did you get mad when people leave? It's like, because I poured my heart and soul in getting these individuals to move, to be better, right? So let's fast forward, or we go back to the point where I offered you a big check for you to join. And you had been the second person in a row that had actually turned away the offer. And we're talking about you and the other gentlemen who have been doing consistently over 100 transactions a year by that time. And it opened up my thought process into thinking, what is it about their decision about eXp? Are they actually choosing to do it because it's going to be an easier path to do business without any restrictions? Well, you've continued to grow from there. And then being on the other side of the transaction, anytime that there was an eXp transaction as a broker, uh, I analyzed it to see how thorough you guys are with your paperwork and the systems that you have, and to ensure that the transaction is taken care of and done correctly, was actually very surprising to me. I wasn't expecting that because of some of the things that I had heard and read about the structure as the organization was growing about 10 years ago. There was a little bit of a bias there, and still believing that the system that had been around for over 100 years may be the best one. And here's the other piece, Jose Luis, being being told that, being with the Coldwell Bankers or the Century 21s with a lot of history, and being told, oh, you guys are the best of the best, and believing that, and then being encouraged to turn your eye away from other models was something that I had to experience.
Well, even for me, and just so our viewers to understand, like the type of offer that was made, it was $250,000, which
Yeah.
was a decent amount of capital. And I turned it down, I think within a minute. It was just like, thank you, but no thank you. And then a lot of people like wonder, like, okay, so why would he go turn down 250,000 and go to a model where they're not giving him a signing bonus, almost like an athlete?
Mhm.
And that's the part that I was excited about, that this other model provided me with lower fees. With the other model, I said, look, that 250 is a pay advance. I'm basically giving it back to you guys within 6 months or less. So after 6 months, I have to sign a contract to stay on for a certain amount of time.
Right.
I'm basically like just getting a pay advance. And I'm like, I'm not interested in a pay advance. I'm interested in building wealth. So maybe what we could get into is like, why are agents, like, what are the benefits to an agent that's considering? I know the agents, the benefits to myself, what they were, but what would you say, like, for somebody who's maybe on the fence, like, what would you say the benefits of them going from a traditional model going into something like this? What would you say those would be?
So thank you for that, and I want to offer a clarification on that offer. Actually, it was one of the higher recruiters under that business model. So when you turned away, I'm like, wait, hold on, why did he reject an offer because it was, by that time, actually, you were actually the highest offer that I had ever made so far at that time. But let's go back to your question about, so under the business, the traditional model makes you believe that that's actually the best model there. They would like for you to attract other agents because as a manager, I was always asking agents, hey, can you make an introduction so I can go out there and talk to these people? Um, uh, Calling the agents, and I'll be honest with you, Jose Luis, I found everything available to me to make a sincere phone call to congratulate them and so forth, and then I would hear about when I would call the agent on the other side of the transaction to congratulate them on the closing and asking them if there was anything that we can do better to improve the service. Those I would make hundreds of those calls in a month, right? The traditional model does not necessarily have a sustainable model, from my perspective, because there's other than receiving an award or a recognition, which are very, very important for people, because yes, recognition is important. As one of my colleagues actually said, you can't take a recognition to the bank and make a deposit, right? So I was actually going to point to my pin, right? The recognition that I received from VCCR, I love the recognition that somebody it gave me a recognition for doing good in my community. I didn't do that to receive recognition. I did that because biblically, that is what it's required of me as a believer, right? Unfortunately, the traditional model, other than you being able to negotiate a better split or maybe get a marketing allowance or maybe being flown over to a resort, to spend a nice vacation. Unfortunately, those things are not necessarily things that are going to help me build my book of business to the higher level. So let's go to this business model. And this business model, one of the first things that I was concerned about, that I was going to feel very lonely with the eXp model because it was this virtual system, right? And at first I was a little bit like hesitant about it, and then I realized we do a lot of things in the virtual world, right? So when I was able to understand how you are structured as a company within a company in the support system, that's when it clicked to me. Seeing individuals like Vicente, who has built a team, a tremendous team of agents, younger agents who are involved. And I have to tell you something, it's hard to not notice the fact that Vicente's team, his younger agents are actually doing more transactions than the average agent out there that has been doing it for a longer period of time. You can't ignore that, right? So people will be saying, okay, so what are they doing over there? Are they doing it the right way, or are they cutting corners? Well, the reality is, like, and please forgive me, I think I have this reputation. I go out there and analyze and see, hey, are they doing it the right way, or are they cutting corners? And you guys are doing it the right way. So for me, going and researching a little bit further about how you are structured and the people that are in your team from coast to coast was, it's like, this is a no-brainer. There's support, the warmth. One of the fears that I had is, again, going back to the virtual world. Am I going to be in this cold room? And going back to 2006, when my son was born, Oliver, and I was working from home. Am I going to be alone working from home, changing diapers? Although I don't have young kids that way anymore. I was fearful of that. But this environment that you guys have created has become just like a family, which is very appealing.
Well, it's interesting because when we were creating this environment, we love the fact that it's virtual, but we also wanted to create that local community and that national community as well too. Because we, just like you, we analyze other brokerages as well too, and we analyze like, okay, what do the agents like and what don't they like? So what I realized is they want the training, they want the lower fees than most of the companies. They want the opportunity to earn additional streams of income. They want the ownership in the company, but they also want that warm, fuzzy feeling with awards. They also want that camaraderie. They also want that culture as well associated with it. So, what we did is we're like, okay, how can we combine both? And if you combine both, I think that's really the winning business model because you're giving the agent. So, I'll tell you the part of the reason why I joined the company, because when I left my previous company, it was number one in West Ventura County in terms of market share. And what they told me was that, look, if you leave this company, your business is going to drop. The only reason your business is where it is because you are with this company and this company has a great reputation. And when they said that to me, a part of me, it kind of messed with my brain a little bit for like a week. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, is my business going to drop? Am I better off staying? Am I making a mistake? Am I not? I said, what do I got to lose? I'm just going to make the switch. And if something doesn't work out, then I'm sure they'll welcome me back with open arms. They're not going to say, oh, you left, like you can't come back. So what I realized was that at the previous company, I got special treatment because I was a top producer. But what I realized is that the model was broken where agents that weren't to the production level that I was didn't receive any of the other benefits that I received as a top producer. So what I liked about this model is that everybody has the same opportunity as I do, regardless if you're 15 years in the business or 2 years in the business, meaning everybody has the opportunity when they invite agents to receive residual. Everybody has an opportunity to earn ownership equity in a company as well too, regardless of who you are. Everybody is on the same exact split regardless of your production level. Nobody receives any secret deals behind the closed doors or anything like that. And I love that because it gives an agent an opportunity to actually build residual streams of income. What would you say to somebody that's maybe on the fence and like looking at the model, kind of similar to you? Like, are they doing something that's not right? Are they doing something that's not by the book? What would you say to that agent that maybe is on the fence?
So it's very scary to one ask the question, because unfortunately the way that the system is structured, the moment that somebody hears that you're considering a move, you start getting phone calls from everyone and their mom, right? Good and bad, right? Um, Here's what I'll say, right? When news, I don't consider myself anything special, but I felt like I was like, somebody that was just released from a contract at the, for the Dodgers, and it was a free agent and getting phone calls. I started getting phone calls from different entities,
Yeah.
and and I try, so this time around, my wife said, I'm going to take the lead on doing this research, right? I followed that, even down to San Diego. We spent 3 or 4 days going out talking to a lot of different people. One day we had like 4 different interviews. I'm gonna share something that I think that I hopefully is of value for someone. Okay, go out there and make those interviews and find out what other people have to offer. But I encourage you to ask very straightforward questions and find out how they feel about doing something. For example, I am trying to develop a unique business model, which I'll share a little bit further. I got a hell no, don't do that. When I went to a different market where I have a lot of friends and a lot of agents that believe and love me, and they still call and say, hey, would you come over and manage for us over here? And when I went to speak with their manager, that person told me, you should focus on finding a broker that is around the corner from your house. You shouldn't be coming up to our market because you really, basically what he told me, I didn't belong there, right? You should go talk to this other person over there. Ooh. And then one of the other conversations that I had, they were very excited about having me come over and talk to them. No follow through. I had another individual that made a very interesting offer, and there's a lot of smokes and screens and so forth. But I asked a lot of questions. The one that really helped me understand that going back to the traditional model was, and I want to thank this person for answering all my questions, was a person that if I chose to stay where I was, I could be that person in 25 years, kind of wondering when the boss is going to let me go. And I didn't want that feeling anymore. So so to answer your question more specifically, if you are on the fence, ask the questions, okay? If you have that calling, that means that there's an opportunity there. And I had this conversation with Aaron Novello over the feeling that that you're being called to do something and you're being accepted. You need to take that step to ask the right questions, because otherwise you may end up like a lot of those agents that are sitting there hoping that the market comes back. The market is here, right? You're just hoping that the market is going to come back, so you have to take action. You just can't wait for me to make a phone call and say, hey, how are things going? Let me tell you about everything that is wrong with your brokerage and why you should come with me. No, it's just leading by example. I have to tell you, Jose Luis, I have been feeling such, well, okay, so I'll be very clear. As of last night, the transfer of my license was not clear. I still had to make some phone calls, and this morning I actually made some phone calls to some people that were, that, and I didn't, and I think I shared a couple of things with you a couple of days ago. I had a hard time making this decision because if I would have made the decision to take care of me, it could leave a lot of people hanging, unfortunately, and I didn't want that for them. So we took the extra steps. And this morning, I made some arrangements to ensure that my former agents would not be left hanging, because I believe that they should be able to do real estate without any impact on the decision that I had to make, right? Or the decision that was made for me. What I invite you to do if you are in the fence is ask those right questions. As a matter of fact, if you're so worried about somebody coming and saying, oh, you should come over and work with me, or let me put you in touch with somebody else, go outside of your boundaries, like I did. I made phone calls about this model to people in Florida that are not affiliated with this specific group. I made phone calls to people in Chicago. I made phone calls even internationally to see if everything that has been promised to them was being fulfilled. And the answer is, it's going to be a little bit bumpy, but for the most part, everything that they promise and they actually deliver on. The first step is, getting off that fence and making that phone call and inquiring. I can guarantee you, Jose Luis, that if they call me and say, hey, why is it, what is it, why are you seeing this as an opportunity? I'm going to be very candid without any expectation for them to join the downline, because I will tell you that is a put off for people because they may not understand it. And when we share this in, the news about our decision to our son Oliver, who's in college, and my son Jasper, who's in junior high, excuse me, in high school as a freshman, and our daughter who's in junior high, the first thing that came to the mind is like, oh, that's a pyramid scheme. I was like, yeah, but every single structure is set up that way. It's not one of those scenarios where you're asked to buy Nerium products to be able to feed the downline or sell Shockley and buy a bunch of Shockley product in order to do that. No, this is not that type of structure. And I'm not approaching it from that perspective, but I've seen the numbers. They're very appealing for somebody that wants to do that. And more importantly, this specific structure is going to allow me to pursue something that other companies have been trying to do, but they don't have the structure to do so. And it's really, I did not invent the model, but I've been reading about it, and I think that this specific structure is the perfect scenario for that individual that wants to capitalize on their history of selling real estate. So
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I feel like it led to collaboration. You mentioned to me at some point, you're like, hey, Jose Luis, I actually didn't know you were part of Elite Builders. That's what
yeah,
you mentioned to me. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because what will end up happening in different there's EXP, the company, and the company's phenomenal, but
right.
there's also like your sponsor, whoever your sponsor is. And for somebody like you, there's an endless supply of potential sponsors, meaning like there's people lining up to want to sponsor somebody like you. How important is the person or the organization that you select as a sponsor? And can you talk a little what you've kind of learned about Elite Builders as well, too, as an organization as well?
I feel the need to share this. I know Leo Pareja at a deeper level than most average people in the U.S. would have. Through our connection with NAREP, I was able to watch Leo, the growth that he had through NAREP. And then when he developed a product that most real estate agents use, people don't know that he actually was part of that founding company. I had the opportunity of interviewing him because I was part of our local association with which that product was pitched. So that to me was an appeal, right? But then as I was doing the research, going back to Elite Builders, when I'm working out at the gym, I notice a lot of different real estate podcasters and so forth, and a couple of people, that they caught my attention. We have Lars, we have Aaron Novello, we have you, but I didn't understand the structure at that time. Um, so I said, okay, well, they're doing the EXP model, but they're not talking about downline. They're talking about how they help their agents be more productive, and they're sharing their strategies just out in the open. Like, okay, well, this is very interesting. So what's the catch, right? So I thought that elite builders was something that was so far away from me that I was not going to have access to elite builders. I found that elite builders was what I wanted to be structured under or to be supportive, because I found that through elite builders, maybe I could share some of the knowledge that I had, gathered around throughout my last 30 years plus, and be able to help agents outside of the boundaries of my association and outside of the boundaries of my state where I'm licensed. Um, and I've learned a lot from them. So to my surprise, to find out that Elite Builders was co-founded in Ventura County, it was like, that was, to me, was very surprising. And I don't think that people know that something that well structured is here in their own backyard
Yeah, it
and
was.
accessible to them even if they're not in this backyard.
Well, it was interesting because when Aaron came up to me, he had some concern. Or when Aaron and I spoke about co-founding Elite Builders, he had some concerns about the model. And what I told them was like, look, we can't control what the other organizations provide, but we can control what we provide. I'm like, you and I can build something together where we provide tremendous value to the agents. You and I can build something together where we have this tremendous culture. You and I can build something together. And now what we've done is we've attracted certain leaders like yourself where we have different leaders in all aspect that are helping build elite builders. So now we have the very best in the world at everything, you know? So, and I continue to be appreciative for people like you partnering with us. So, where do you see yourself? Like, what do you see for elite builders? What do you see for yourself? What final words would you like to give to anybody watching this?
So don't wait for the model to season more, because by the time that the model seasons more, it's going to be another 20 years, 30 years, just like what happened with the entity that I was with, where it's still considered new in the big scheme of things after 50 years. You just can't wait for it to prove. I'll share some mistakes that I've been very candid about, some of the mistakes that I've made in my life, right? One, I didn't buy Bitcoin because I was apprehensive over the model, right? I could have bought Bitcoin where, I would probably be sitting on about $20 million of just free equity there, right? I could have bought Apple when I was a younger kid, and I didn't think that I had the $10,000 to make the investment. The reality is that even as a young person, I had saved up that money, but I was really scared about what's going to happen, right? Well, the reality is that I could have done that stuff, and maybe I could have joined eXp or this business model a while back, but this elite builders only started about what, two and a
Very
half years
well,
ago, 3 years
yeah,
ago. Yeah. So
yeah.
elite builders was not there. So and there was another business model under the EXP that I could have, but it just didn't smell right at that time. It smells right today. But that was just my personal issues and so forth that I just had to get over it, right? So, so as far as closing words, we just have to separate ourselves with with what other people are saying, because the reality is that other people that are telling you, and I think that what they're trying to tell you, I believe that they're being um, uh, with good intentions, but I don't think that they've actually taken the time to look past the innards of what's going on. I have been a Ford and a Range Rover guy for the longest time, and when it was time for me to get a different vehicle, I neglected, or I was looking at the surface of a vehicle because I was, that was labeled as a tree hugger car even by myself. And my son Oliver says, "Hey, Dad, if you're tired of the Fords and if you're tired of the Range Rover that is always leaving you on the side of the road, maybe you should look at a different car." Well, what car should I look at? I went to Volkswagen. He's like, "Nah, I don't like Volkswagen." Took me over to the Subaru dealership and says, "I think that you should buy this car." The best car that I've ever owned. And if you ask my mom, it's like, she knows that I buy a car every 3 years. This has been the car that I've actually owned for more than 3 years, and it's been the best decision. But I had to let go of my biases and go in with an open mind to research this. There is something that resonates with me, and I have to remind myself about this, that I have to approach things from the sense of wonder, just like a little kid does. And I love spending time with little kids because they're pretty entertaining. You tell them something and they give you a response. So my approach this time around was to go in as if I was a little kid and ask why, and ask why, and why does it make sense, and then how can I use this to, for the first time in my life, to benefit me and my family. So
And
that's what I have to share.
and I love the fact that you've built like really strong relationships with different agents without really expecting anything in return. And I think that with this model, that's going to serve you very well. And I think for a lot of people, the timing has to be right as well too. Like for me, I was
Right.
first introduced to the model in 2017. I said, no, thank you. I'm gonna just continue selling real estate. Then I had my son, my oldest son, and when I had my son, I'm like, I've seen too many movies. Like I have the fortune of talking to other brokers, talking to other people, and I see how the movie starts and I see how the movie ends. And I'm like, I don't want that to be my life. I don't want to miss out on my children's life. I want to be an active participant. And I said, okay, what options do I have to be an active participant in the people's lives that I love? And I said, it wasn't right timing in 2017, but when I looked at it again, I'm like, this could be a vehicle to help me be an active participant in the way that I want to live life. So I do want to say thank you, Jorge. I
Well,
appreciate your time. I appreciate your trust, and I appreciate the partnership now because now we're partners. And I hope to be able to deliver with you and some of the other partners that we partnered up with. Um, if somebody wanted to maybe partner up with you or somebody had questions about the model, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
phone call. I think my phone number has been. I received a notification from Verizon that I have been a Verizon client for the last 27 years. That number is out there. You can put Jorge De Leon on any search engine and my phone number will pop up. But let's go ahead and clarify that: 805-794-7102. That's a local number here in California, 805-794-7102. I'm also through WhatsApp, the same phone number through WhatsApp, and or through Gmail. I'm using Gmail now, which was actually something, and the reason I'm doing it is I have more control over my contacts this way versus somebody else having them. That's my first name, middle name, last name, Jorge Noe De Leon at Gmail. Try to keep it as simple as possible. I know it's long, but that's the name that my mother gave me, so I'm honoring it by putting it as my full name on Gmail. Um, Coffee, phone call, text message, even if you want to get on Zoom. Um, I've had to make an adjustment, Jose Luis. I've spent about let's see, in the last 2.5 years, I think I put in that car almost 100,000 miles. So I have been so accustomed to being on the road that it's feeling strange to have brick and mortar for the first time, even for a cloud-based brokerage. So I just wanted to thank you for extending this opportunity to me and my family.
Yeah. And we're very grateful. So I'm excited about this opportunity. I'm excited about what you're going to be doing with this model. For those of you watching, we had Jorge De Leon, our newest partner with eXp, and we look forward to obviously continue to grow. Thank you so much, Jorge. To our
Hey,
viewers, until next time.